Avengers Endgame is coming out this week, people! Can you believe it? While we're sure it'll blow our collective minds, we've gotta ask, what comes after Endgame? Well, we think the MCU's next stop is the first real crossover event from the Marvel Comics, Secret Wars. We think that in Endgame, we'll see how the godlike being known as the Beyonder will join the MCU, and how it'll all eventually lead to Secret Wars. While the whole world is waiting for Avengers Endgame to finally come out, we're sure that the great minds in Marvel Studios are already working hard on the next decade of MCU films. Seriously, just look at Kevin Feige. That guy is probably thinking, oh, you think Endgame's going to be huge? Wait until you see what's next. But while we're sure the future of the MCU is very bright, we have to wonder what the next big superhero movie event after Endgame is. And since you saw the title, you know we're about to talk about Secret Wars. In a recent interview, the Russo brothers have hinted that they're very interested in making a Secret Wars movie, and it wasn't actually the first time they spoke about the fan-favorite story from the comics. Let's be honest, after seeing their work in the MCU so far, we think the Russos were born to do a movie adaptation of Secret Wars. There are actually two different versions of this story in the comics. The original one, and the most popular one, was published in 1984. Marvel Comics published another version of Secret Wars in 2015, and while the two versions have some similarities, their stories are very different. We have a feeling that when and if Secret Wars will be adapted to the big screen, chances are that Marvel Studios will focus on the original story a lot more. Not only is it a fan-favorite story, but the 2015 version is very complicated, and for many moviegoers, it might be very hard to digest, because it involves a clash between multiple universes and their destruction. Yeah, it's a pretty hard pill to swallow. The original Secret Wars was the first major crossover event in Marvel Comics, as it included multiple heroes and villains from all of Marvel's properties. Not only was it a monumental event in the comics, the story itself is considered to be one of the best crossover events that Marvel's ever done. In the 12 issues, a powerful cosmic being called the Beyonder becomes very interested in Earth's superpowered beings, and he sends many heroes and villains to Battleworld, a planet he created just for the occasion. There, the Beyonder pretty much sets up his own Fortnite and Hunger Games match. The heroes are forced to fight the villains, all while the Beyonder watches like it's some of his favorite Twitch streamers in action. The fun thing about the Secret Wars story is how unique it was at the time. It was very fresh to see heroes and villains being taken out of their element and being forced to clash for the entertainment of a godlike being. And yeah, the Beyonder is pretty much omnipotent. For a while, he was the be-all and end-all entity in Marvel Comics. The Infinity Stones? Those rocks, nothing on him. He's beyond the 6 colorful gems, no pun intended. The main question, of course, is how Endgame will lead to Secret Wars. Well, we have a theory about that. Both Avengers Infinity War and Endgame represent a paradigm shift for the MCU. While in Infinity War, Thanos collected all 6 Infinity Stones and wiped out 50% of all life in the universe, in Endgame, we'll see the Avengers messing around with time travel in the quantum realm. These are the types of things that'll surely be a good way to attract the attention of a being as powerful as the Beyonder. You see, the interesting thing about the Beyonder is that he's a curious fellow. He comes from a very different reality, and he's actually the embodiment of his own universe. Yeah, comic books can be strange. The Beyonder was fascinated by living beings and tried to understand why they're so different from him. As he observed the people of Earth, he eventually arrived to the conclusion that humans are incomplete, and therefore must strive to evolve and grow. This led to the Beyonder creating the universe's biggest experiment, where he sent a group of heroes and villains to Battleworld to fight each other as his very own lab rats. Since, the only way to evolve and grow is playing a game of Fortnite on an alien planet. We think the events of Infinity War and Endgame will make the MCU's version of the Beyonder become very fascinated by Earth's heroes. After all, the decimation was an event like no other in history. It was a catastrophe on a cosmic scale, and it affected every living being in the universe. The Beyonder probably noticed that something major happened when people started turning to dust. When the Avengers eventually undo the decimation in Endgame, they'll automatically become very captivating targets for the Beyonder. It'll make total sense for the Beyonder to take notice of the Avengers following the events of Endgame. An all-powerful being such as the Beyonder will have to wonder how it was possible for a mostly Earth-based team to undo the decimation that was caused by the Infinity Stones. It's also possible that when the Avengers will go back in time through the quantum realm, they'll accidentally come across the Beyonder without even knowing it. The quantum realm isn't exactly a place that exists in the main Marvel universe. It's actually a separate dimension which consists of multiple realities. And so it's possible that while the Avengers travel inside the quantum realm, they'll somehow bring the Beyonder to their own universe. It's entirely possible that the Ant-Man movies will prove to be far more important than we first thought. We did see that Janet Van Dyne has returned from the quantum realm with some new powers, which means there's a lot more to the quantum realm than just Ant-Man shrinking. The quantum realm could be a gateway to the multiverse, and of course, since the Beyonder comes from another universe, it makes sense if the actions of the Avengers in Endgame will draw his attention and bring him to Earth. It could be fun if one of the post-credit scenes for Endgame will have the Beyonder show up on Earth as he starts observing the Avengers, trying to understand what makes these heroes so special. The great thing about Secret Wars is just how different it is from most comic book stories. It's not about saving the world or the universe, it's about survival. Beyond that, it's an interesting way to explore the characters in a whole new way. How will these heroes and villains react to each other in an alien environment? Secret Wars could also provide some really fresh battles. While we've had over 20 MCU movies, we have yet to see an actual proper battle between a team of heroes and villains. Usually in these films, there's one main villain with an army of CGI henchmen that the heroes must face. But the whole point of Secret Wars, and what makes it such a great storyline, is that there are essentially two teams: heroes and villains. No CGI army of cannon fodder. It's kind of like the amazing airport battle from Captain America Civil War, only with heroes fighting villains on a much bigger scale. The only drawback in the Secret Wars movie will be the fact that we'll probably won't see Spider-Man in his black suit. Secret Wars was the first time Spider-Man wore the black symbiote suit, after finding it on Battleworld, and that eventually led to the creation of Venom. But we already know that Sony's introduced Venom into their own cinematic universe, which probably means Marvel Studios won't be able to use the character in their films. It's a shame, but we do hope Disney and Sony will find a way to allow Marvel Studios to play around with the symbiotes and create some amazing stories in the next few years. Come on, Sony. You know it's for the best. Just free poor Tom Hardy so he can play Wolverine. Well, at least we're sure that Doctor Doom will finally get some justice in Secret Wars. Doctor Doom played a major role in the comic book storyline, and we hope to see the Russo bros' version of the character, since we can bet their Doctor Doom will be out of this world. Literally. While we do think the Secret Wars movie will focus on the original version, there's a good chance some elements from the new one will be included in the film as well. As the MCU grows, it can get very complicated, and sooner or later, the MCU is gonna need a bit of a reboot, or a way to wipe the slate clean. After all, nothing can last forever, and at some point, even the MCU is gonna need a major shakeup to keep people coming. 2015 Secret Wars was just that for the comics. It was a major event like none other for Marvel, and it was a good way to simplify the overcomplicated comic stories and bring a bunch of universes and realities together. 2015's version dealt with the multiverse a lot, including the clashing of multiple universes and many different alternative versions of the same characters. The MCU has been teasing the multiverse for a while now. We saw glimpses of it in Thor: The Dark World with the Convergence. The Ant-Man movies introduced the quantum realm, which could be a good gateway to other realities, and the multiverse was heavily showcased in Doctor Strange. It'll make sense if Avengers Endgame sets up the multiverse even more, and possibly opens the doorway to heroes using the quantum realm to visit other universes and meet their counterparts. But as we saw in the comics, at some point, the multiverse can become too much. With so many versions of the same characters, it's easy to feel a bit lost. It'll make sense if at some point they use Secret Wars as a way to wipe the slate clean. Essentially, it'll be like hitting the reset button and rebooting the MCU. We think that even the MCU can't go on forever, and sooner or later, Marvel Studios is going to need to recast all of their characters. Secret Wars is how it could be done. But with that being said, we'd first like to see the original and straightforward version of Secret Wars before we jump into a clash of the multiverse and a big old reboot. Regardless of when we'll get to see a Secret Wars film or what version the MCU will adapt, we think the Secret Wars movie is coming sooner or later. It's the first real Marvel crossover event, and it's a story that every fan will want to see on the big screen. So, when do you think we'll see the Secret Wars in the MCU? And what version of the storyline would you like to see? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, we'd appreciate it if you like and subscribe to CBR. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video.